Music softens in thy hollow winds, and in thy fading woods are beauty blooms, that's more than dear to melancholy minds.
Folk art can be anything that people do. It's very much a people activity. The people involved in it are the important things. And there's a kind of performance that seems to come naturally to people when they're given the opportunity to take part in a kind of folk activity. It's almost ritualistic, and I think there's a need within people to be part of a ritual and a performance. There are three kind of aspects to it. There's the sort of folkloric aspect, taking part in annual events and exploring them and performing with various artifacts. There's the ventriloquism, which is quite a big part. The ventriloquist dummies, they both perform under my direction and they perform in their own right. And there's the building, small buildings. I'm very fond of small buildings. And I have the doors building, which is just made of doors based on my dad's allotment shed. And all the doors open, unlike my dad's shed, which only had one door, which was very frustrating.
It's not me doing the talking. Read my lips, I'm not moving my mouth. I am the ventriloquist.
It started years and years ago. I've always been fascinated by ventriloquists and ventriloquism. I loved them when I was a child. Ray Allen and Lord Charles was one of the best. There were many. So I thought I'd make a ventriloquist dummy of my own. He had a head that was made from a cast of my head. He wasn't too communicative, but he started to take on a life of his own.
What about my nerves? My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad.
Well, they're both called Bob. Sometimes if I'm talking to them and I say which one, to identify them. One's young Bob and one's old Bob. When I made this one, I realised I was much older than I was then. So I had a cast made of my head and updated him.
Everybody's looking at the dummy like it's his mouth, the words come out. He says each word exactly how I want it. He has
Still performing, drumming, singing, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. You can get away with things that in real life you can't get away with. Yeah, it's hiding. It's also quite cathartic in a way that you can get things out of yourself through the dummy. People are looking at the dummy and they're assuming that the dummy is real, and they want to believe it's real. So they're not really looking at me. So if I move my lips, which I do quite a lot, it's fine, it doesn't matter. When it really gets going and you kind of lose yourself, as you do when performing for Jack in the Green or something like that, you lose yourself completely. So I'm not in control. It is like the dummy takes over and the dummy is saying the words. But it's again, a tool to hide behind. In some ways, like the folk outfits that you're in disguise, with the dummy, I'm almost in disguise. My voice is in disguise. I have a horse which I've performed with, and when I get dressed up as the horse, I become the horse, and I can do all sorts of things because nobody knows it's me. The ritual of dressing up and hiding yourself, which it makes performing much easier because no one is going to say, look at that fool there. Well, they might do, but they don't know exactly who the fool is. So there's that, hiding behind a facade, but letting yourself go is an aspect of folk art that I really enjoy. This is a horse that I get inside and dance around with and perform. And he's got various costumes. This is the wassail costume. and he's still wearing that from back in January. He's got a summer costume. He's got an autumn costume which is made of leaves on a big cloak. He appears at different times, different seasons. He's very versatile. He's not just a one-season animal. I call him a Sussex wild horse. He's not a hobby horse. I think technically they're called mast horses because they have a pole inside. And then there's a hobby horse, this is more of a hobby horse type thing, which is he just is like a stick.
It must have been buried for years, because all that was really left of it was the skull. He brought it back with him, threw an old smock over the top and held it on top of his head. He then paraded his new find round the streets. Some people were frightened by it and ran off shrieking, but most just laughed. John didn't care. He was just so pleased with what he'd found, and he wanted to show it off.
Being able to do silly things that you've thought of that you might like to do, but think, well, no, I couldn't really do that. But if you become the fool, then you're able to do whatever you want. I think it probably upsets some people to see people being silly, but in general, I think it's a natural desire to do something silly, and just to let yourself be free and do whatever you want. Hastings, the dressing up folklore performing capital of England. Yeah, we have all the performances from all the activities and events, from Jack in the Green to Wassail to Twelfth Night, Bonfire. There are so many, and they're all interconnected really. So many of the folk activities are related to the time of year, and people want to be more aware of what's happening in the natural world. Jack in the Green takes place at the beginning of summer, Bonfire in the autumn, winter coming, the awareness of the time of year. People can get back to that feeling of connection. It's easy to do and it's fun to do, and I've always liked making things up. But also they're not just objects. They're used, the clothes are worn and they come alive, and I can be a different person. It was made for a film of the horse, but the whole film really was a celebration of autumn. I mean, putting it on now, it feels really good.
This sanctuary allows me to be whoever I please. I have been many people. I can change in the twinkling of an eye.
The idea of those folk objects is the idea that anyone can take part in it, anyone can make it. There's no good or bad. It's folk art, and it's of the folk. It's not going to be judged, and no decisions are made whether it's allowed or not. That's the importance of folk art.
I made it for Jack in the Green 2 or 3 years ago. I think I was just trying to think about the sea and about rock pools. So it's just bits of material, embroidery, things stuck on. And this bit's knitted because I thought it was a bit kind of seaweedy. I wear a costume which looks like a costume, and then when I turn round, I look as though I turn round, but I've got something on that looks like it's facing that way. Right, this is the bottom half, which is really stuffed, and used to be, before that, it was a fox outfit, and it had a big tail, but I took the tail off. So I wear these, and then the top, this is an old jumper of Bob's, but it tucks in so you don't see it. That's the front, so I just look like I'm somebody wearing something a bit furry. But at the back, and I turn round and walk backwards. But then when I put it on, it's always okay. And as soon as you step outside and you see people, you just feel really good. It's just such a good thing that everybody can be involved.
A folk object is a remembrance of something and helps focus your thoughts and understanding and your questions about what it's all about. This is my Wild Man hat, but of course it's another annual Hastings event, Hastings Wild Man, which takes place around January or February. It's a group of like-minded people who like the idea of the European wild man, which is prominent throughout Europe. And I have a suit which is made of the same material. It's I become a bit like a cross between a polar bear and a womble. There's the object itself and the beauty of the object and its practical use of hiding the performer, and the way it can enable the performer to do what they need to do. The skeleton, that's inspired by Mexican Day of the Dead figures. The framework is withes, and it's just covered in very, very roughly in paper mache. You see something that really strikes a chord with you, and there's no reason not to make use of it as well. And anything that I might make, I'm very happy for someone else to copy it or use it or develop something from that. I think it's good to share things around, because they all in some ways mean the same thing. Well, come and have a look in the cinema.
There are also many instances of heads being reburied, an effective way of keeping them safe from ritual pilfering during the months when not in use.
It's very secret. I mean, I've got a notice on the door saying the underground cinema, because it is like it's underground. But if that sign wasn't there, it looks just like a cupboard door. It's quite a small door, and there are other cupboards. So when people come in, it is quite a surprise. They're taken aback to discover that it's actually, you know, a proper cinema. The idea of the shed, really, it starts with that. I always liked the garden shed at home when I was a child. And then the next small room was my dad's allotment shed. He was a builder, and he kept all the doors that he had to take off and replace. And so when he got an allotment, the first thing he did was build his shed with all these doors. And yeah, just the one end door opened, and I thought, it's a shame that they don't all open. So when I made my own doors building, I've got all the doors that open, and they open in all directions. They open all the way round. So you can play with this building and make different shapes, different spaces, small spaces. You can open it all up, and it's almost like the building's not there, because every door is open and you just see the framework. And this building is it's portable, and it's very versatile. It can be used for all kinds of different things. It's been a cinema, and anyone can use it. Different performers can come in, go out, use different doors, and we thought it'd be quite nice. It would fit in with the mummers play. There's a mummers group in Hastings, as there would be. But I think mumming is, you know, there are more and more mumming groups around the country. There's a basic format for the play, but I think there are improvisations and developments of it. So it is still very much the old play that people performed in the 1850s or whenever, but with various modern additions.
you know, we are recognisable. But as I said, it's because we're, you know, we're like the small giants in the procession.